Shwmai a croeso cynnes, and welcome to the What's Your Stori podcast. I'm James Owen, a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller, and I'm passionate about sharing stories. This podcast is all about business owners sharing their journey, and we'll be speaking with directors, entrepreneurs and creatives from all across Wales to learn from their experiences. We believe everyone has a story to tell. What's your story? Shwmai, croeso cynnes, welcome back to What's Your Story, and I got an action-packed episode today, and for myself as someone who started up a business, I know what it takes to start up a company, and this man who is in the hot seat today knows lots about startups. In fact, he's spoken to, I've even lost count how many startups he's advised and guided over the years. This man from Cardiff is an innovator, is an entrepreneur, and a future Prime Minister. You heard it here first on What's Your Story. I'm very delighted to welcome the founder of Innovators Uncensored, Richard Lee. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's an exciting day. I'm glad to be here, glad to kind of speak about stories and see what's going on, mate. I'm excited to be here.
There's a lot going on down this neck
100%.
of the woods. Have you been at Llanelli before?
I actually have. So I was driving here. I was like, I don't normally come out of Cardiff unless I'm going really far away. I'm not really out of Cardiff that much. So I came down here and I realised I have been down here with the previous job. I did a stock count at a chemical plant down here not so long. Well, if I say not so long ago, a few years ago now. But that's the only time I ventured down here. I have a friend who has a business up in Neath. It's called Booths by the Bridge, so she's got a pub that she's renovated up there. But other than that, yeah, I don't venture down here too much, so it's a nice change of scenery.
It's a nice place. On a nice summer's day, it's a beautiful place to be, mind.
Yeah, no, I drove over the bridge and I saw the beaches and the sand, and it's an incredible place. I'm always a big advocate for Wales. I'm always trying to get people down here, so the more I can see, the more I can sell to people outside of Wales. Good man.
Put in Wales on the map. I mean, I love going to Cardiff myself. Cardiff's a great city, but yeah, it's always nice to come home. But yeah, we're very blessed down here to have what we have down in Llanelli. Now, for those listening, watching, can you give a summary of, because Innovators Uncensored, that's your primary focus right now. You're obviously building something else in the background. We'll talk a bit about that in a moment. But for those listening, what is Innovators Uncensored?
So Innovators Uncensored is a startup founder, self-employed, focused media company. So everything we're trying to do is bring startups and self-employment and entrepreneurship to the mainstream in a more fun and exciting way that isn't just lectures on term sheets by lawyers and people telling you how to build big business plans. We like to cover exciting people, building exciting things in a way that's a lot more consumable. And hopefully then that brings it to the mainstream a lot more, and people can consume it a lot more easily and become a lot more interested in it as a byproduct. So been doing that for 2.5 years now. The reason it started was because with my last business, I did a big pitch, an investment pitch, on the rooftop of Google's London HQ. So we had all the massive investors in there. I was the only business from outside of London there. And we had this one fund that was coming up to us and was really, really keen in speaking to us. And I was taking it in, I was thinking, yeah, this is fantastic. We're going to raise this money, we're going to build a big company here. And at the end of it, the founders who pitched had a bit of a debrief with each other. And they came up to me and they said, "You're not from London, are you?" And I said, "No, not from here at all." They said, "Yeah, you want to stay away from that fund because their behaviour is really, really bad. And they're known in London for being a really bad fund." I had no idea. And at the time, I would consider myself someone that was pretty plugged into that world. I'm far more plugged in these days, but I had no idea. So initially then there was a massive gap in terms of knowledge from those founders in London and the founders outside London. So I thought, okay, how can I solve this? How can I bridge that gap? And then a good friend of mine called Gary Piazzon came to me and said, "Hey, you want to write a newsletter about startups? Do you want to join me?" Well, yeah, perfect. This is the right vehicle for what I was looking for. So started there, continued writing these newsletters, which go out every single week. They still go out today, every Friday. So one went out today, this morning actually. And then saw we had a bit of a user base building up in Cardiff where we're based, did a bunch of events, moved the events then into Bristol, we did stuff in Southampton, we've done stuff in London, we've done stuff all over the UK, and just kind of built it from there, really.
It's a fantastic brand because through the brand itself and the content you put out, and I'm a subscriber on that newsletter. I read it. It's a fantastic resource, and I reached out to you a few weeks ago because we met if I take you back a few years, we met playing crazy golf in Cardiff. That's when I first met you at a networking event. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. I'm sure you probably beat me on the day as well.
Oh, I don't know, mate. I'm crap at golf.
So am I. So am I.
That's saying something. But yeah, I remember meeting you many years ago, and you had a different business back then, and maybe you can break that down. But I knew, so for those maybe listening, watching, it is publicised, but I've set up a new business. I've seen a gap in the market. You know, I'm a storyteller, I'm a filmmaker, and in my world, within the landscape of the Welsh language is very underserved in the tech space of AI. There are tools out there that exist that support it, but it is very underserved. That is evident. I had this idea 2 years ago to build an app that can translate subtitles. Now, a lot of the work we do in public sector, because of legislation, it has to be bilingual. Now, for me as a Welsh speaker, that's great because that's business for me. That's business that English-only speaking businesses in that space can't pitch for. Or they could, but they got to subcontract it out to someone who speaks Welsh and so on. So it's great for us. But I thought of this idea of having an app that through AI could generate the majority of the subtitles and translate it. And then you can, as a human, look at it and tweak and improve it. So this idea 2 years ago, and I've connected with a business partner who's built the app, and it bloody works, man. I've used it on my own projects, and it works. So that's going quite nicely. We've got some real interest from potential investors. We've got potential customers. We've got a dev working for us in kind. It's just blown up. And I thought, right, okay, I've set up one business. Story Company is 7 years old now. I've never set up anything else, and I wouldn't really consider myself entrepreneurial. I just see myself as a filmmaker. But I tell you what, I got a bit of a buzz from setting something up. It's quite fun. It's really exciting. But the first person I thought of, I need some advice on shareholders agreement and all these things. I messaged you on LinkedIn because of your brand and the content you've been putting out. And I just knew, I knew that you would be able to give me some advice and connect. And then when I asked you, I thought, it'd be great to share your journey on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think by nature, wanting to set something up is entrepreneurial. And I don't even think you have to build your own business to be entrepreneurial. I think there's so many people who are employees at great companies, but they have the entrepreneurial way of thinking. They go in there, they innovate systems, they come up with new products, they figure out better ways to make things work. An entrepreneur isn't someone that just thinks of a product and sells it. Entrepreneurial way of thinking is innovation, is how do you change things, how do you move things forward, how do you break things in a way that benefits an institution. And I think so many people have that in them, but by being so black and white about what an entrepreneur is, I think you actually halt thinking and you halt entrepreneurial attitudes. I think we were saying beforehand, if you've got that itch to try something, just give it a go. I think identifying those gaps and those abilities is a super, super important thing for so many people, but it gets halted by this black and whiteness of, to be an entrepreneur, you have to start a business and it has to be this crazy idea and so on and so forth. I don't agree with that. I think there's so many people who have this ability, and you doing this and then trying, okay, well, actually I've taken the skill set, or you've taken the skill set of being able to speak Welsh, you know the market that you sell to and you know the problem, and now you've taken the skills from this business and you're putting it into something else. I think that is a very entrepreneurial thing, and I definitely think that should be applauded and appreciated. And yeah, I think, like I said to you before as well, if I can ever help, I'm always happy to help. And if I know people that can help, if I can introduce you, if I can put you into the right places, I'm always going to do that because I want to see these businesses do well. I want to see people like you do well. So yeah, I think definitely it sounds like an interesting and exciting project. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, good. I can't wait to share more and offline and share where it's going. It is very exciting. But yeah, you were the first person I knew. I know nothing about angel investors, shareholders agreements, any of these sorts of things. I mean, we were in a meeting. I won't say who because of obviously what's going on. Or put it this way, I had a meeting with a very large Welsh broadcaster. Okay. Take your guess who that was. And I thought it was, it was perceived as a introductionary meeting to demo the app. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was in Dragon's Den. They were asking, how much have you raised? Do you have any investors on board? And all these things. I'm thinking, the company isn't on Company's House yet.
Right.
Because we just started this idea. I'm good at talking and I'm good at showing things and meeting people. And yeah, somehow over the last couple of weeks, we've really sort of progressed in building those connections. But yeah, but you were the first person I could think of, because I know you've got a history in starting things. And so Innovators Uncensored, that's going phenomenally well now. And you've got some other plans in the pipeline, which I'm excited to talk about. But I want to hear your story about your first business, because you set up your first business when you were in school.
Yes, yeah. Well, if we can call it a business, yeah. I mean, I initially started buying and selling football boots to my friends, so I could get these really cool football boots that would be sort of pre-release stuff, and I would buy those and I'd sell them on to friends and other people in my football team. And you weren't making millions of pounds, but you were making a few quid here and there, and it was nice. I could give them great football boots and I could have a few quid myself, and it was a good start. And then from there I kind of thought, okay, well, what else am I interested in? Clothes. I loved clothes when I was younger. I was very much interested in the world of fashion and that kind of buying and selling of things. So I transferred, similar to what I was just saying then, transferred the stuff I learned from that first experience into, okay, this is slightly higher margin stuff. I can make more money here and I've got a bigger market. So I was doing that on things like Depop and Vinted and so on. So I'd buy these clothes. There's certain brands like Supreme, Bape, these kind of things where they had a really low release. There's really few released. And then the resale value on it was really high because so many people wanted it. Low supply, really high demand, which meant the retail price would get massively inflated when it comes to the resale market. So I'd do that, and then that started ticking really, really nicely. And then I realized, okay, actually, there's bigger markets here that you can play in as well. There's a couple of brands that were really popular at the time, Champion, Kappa, that kind of stuff. And if you bought them in bulk, you would actually get them significantly cheaper. So I started buying these things in bulk with the money I was earning from buying and selling the kind of high resale clothes. And yeah, as a result, you could buy these big amounts of clothes that would sell for a lot more across the globe, and just carried on going from there. So that was my first kind of step into it. And then, to be fair, my first memory of being alive is very, like, I know it sounds cliche, but I can remember myself as a 4-year-old kid in the playground to some degree telling people I wanted to be a businessman when I grew up. And I was 4 years old running around the playground. It's a funny story, but yeah, I've always been that way inclined for sure.
Good. And so very early on, you showed some entrepreneurial spirit. I know from my time in running a business that there are mountains and you're on top of the mountain, and there are valleys. You have good times in business and there are bad times. So you're experiencing significant success in what you're doing now and building something exciting. But yeah, very early on in your early 20s, let's take back even before then, because you were actually you started working for a large accountancy firm, and you realised maybe employment wasn't for you.
Yeah, I worked at Coffee One before that. I worked at a coffee shop. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I could see myself doing forever. That was when I was doing my exams at school, and then I went into Deloitte, did big international corporate audit stuff. Again, people were great, but I would probably say I'm one of the worst employees like you could ever have, or Deloitte has ever had. I'm not someone that can do the same thing again and again. It just doesn't work for me. I mean, I can do that, but in something where I can see the bigger picture. Whereas if I'm not seeing the bigger picture of this thing, if I know, okay, well, for example, in that job, just do this year's accounts and then we'll do the same for next year's accounts and same again. It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. I can't do it. And that's not a slight on anyone that can do it. I'm not one of these people that says everyone should be an entrepreneur. In fact, I had an interesting conversation with Andrew, the entrepreneurial coach, Andrew.
Andrew Jones?
Yeah.
I know Andrew very well.
So I had a conversation with him about it a while ago where he said everyone should try being an entrepreneur. I love Andrew. We're good friends. I'm going to speak to him next week, I think. But a really good friend of mine. But he was saying that everyone should be an entrepreneur. And I actually don't believe that. I don't believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur. Whilst everyone might have entrepreneurial attitudes, like I was saying earlier, I don't think it's as black and white as entrepreneur has to start their own business. And I think...
Very interesting.
I think a lot of people, like, their day-to-day, how they make money isn't the sole purpose of their life. For a lot of people, that job is the vehicle that enables them to enjoy the actual things that they enjoy. So, that job is something that means that they can have a set period of time each year where they can afford to go on holiday with their family or go to the concerts they want to go to on the weekend. I'm sure you're the same as myself. There's been many a Saturday night, Sunday night where I've been up late doing something, trying to get something over the line, or coming up with this new thing that I've got to plan out for, or put this together, or whatever it might be. That's not what everyone wants to do. So I don't believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur. But for me, I'm a rubbish employee. I'm really just not very good at being that kind of cog. I have to be like let loose and let free. So yeah, that experience at Deloitte was great. Made me kind of understand the workplace a lot more. I was able to communicate professionally, met some great people that were the kind of foundations of my professional network, and I'm still great friends with today. And I got to speak with some of the most incredible businesses in the world. So I did get exposure to things that do still interest me today. But yeah, it wasn't, I don't know if how you felt with employment and stuff in the past, but it wasn't quite the right fit for me.
I think for me, well, growing up, I wanted to be a sports teacher.
Right.
That's what I wanted to do. And then I realised after probably 6 months after an open day in Cardiff Uni, I didn't want to do sports anymore. And I did 2 years of A-levels studying something I had a passion for and I was going to pursue. And then I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do with this gorfforol, bioleg, because I did everything in Welsh, PE and biology. I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do with that? Because I no longer want to be a sports teacher. And I can't explain why that happened or whatever. So I just quit, and I quit sixth form. I didn't have A-levels, carried on, just working, got a job, and sort of jumped on lots of different things. But for me, I think shortly after becoming a Christian, I started going to church about 11 years ago, radically changed my life, and did a complete U-turn. I was this rugby lad going out to the weekends, getting up to no good. And then all of a sudden I thought, okay, there's more to life than money. There's more to life than getting drunk. And I found a sense of purpose in life again. And for me, it was having that opportunity to volunteer. And I taught myself photography. That was the first protocol. And then I started making short little films and documentaries. I love this. How can I earn a living doing this? So I decided I wanted to go to uni to set up a business because I thought I found this passion. So in amongst that journey, I had lots of different jobs. And so for me, back to the employment thing, I just thought, you know what, I think probably what would have been quite cool is working for a company in the creative industry, because that was my plan B. For me to get into university, I had to do 2 years in college, because again, I didn't have the A-levels. You need those qualifications to get into study. So I was pretty set on studying locally in UWTSD, Trinity in Carmarthen, and I wanted to do a degree in filmmaking, of course. And one of the reasons I chose Carmarthen actually is simply because of the entrepreneurship module. Because at the time, I was building my network up with filmmakers, indie filmmakers. I was part of lots of projects making short films, and I was really intrigued because some of the people I was building a relationship with in that world, they were working in Tesco, working in Domino's. Now, none of those things are bad, but when you've studied 3 years of your life to do film and TV or film, and you're working in those sorts of jobs, I'm thinking, well, what's the point? Why did you go to university to be working in these places for years? So for me, the entrepreneurship module was very, very interesting because I wanted to learn how to make money as a filmmaker, because not that money's everything, but to earn a living from being a filmmaker, you need to learn how to make money, right? To do that. So I think from that pursuing higher education, because I want to set up a business, for me, that was I think the penny had dropped then is I learned probably about 10 years ago that I actually want to work for myself, because I felt that was a great way for me to, I found that passion for storytelling, and I thought it'd be cool if I can do that. But my plan B was always to get a job for a production company, because I know from experience working in Wales, there are lots of camera operators working within Welsh television who can't speak Welsh. The creative industries don't have enough Welsh-speaking camera operators. That is fact. So there are lots of big companies out there, independent production companies. I won't name them because they might have a go at me and message me later on LinkedIn. I don't know. But I know from experience, I did a work experience placement when I was in college with an independent production company. And, I'm a Welsh speaker, and I was flabbergasted that these people weren't speaking Welsh, because there's a skills shortage, and they're just employing people who are, okay, you can operate a camera, great. Can you speak Welsh? No, okay, well, we need you anyway. So there's a big skills. So I knew my plan B was to go and work for these companies, but the plan A was always set up my own business because I wanted that freedom of being my own boss, I guess. So, but I remember the last ever paid job I had. I was working part-time as a marketing assistant, and I handed my notice in because during COVID, so I started my degree 2018, and in the first year of my study, I then set up the business officially on Company's House. And the business was growing nicely during COVID. It was a tough time for everyone. But for me, I seen the opportunity, and my business was growing quite nicely, sensibly. Not earning loads of cash, but I started paying myself a wage. And I seen an opportunity, and I was working part-time. And the logical decision was turn the job down, turn the client down, because I've got so much going on. I can't take on this new client in the business because I'm working part-time, I'm studying, I was planning my wedding back in 2020. But the spirit was nudging me, quit your job. Now, in a time where I had no financial support, that was honestly the stupidest thing I could have ever done, logically speaking. But yet, there was something in me that was like, that's what you need to do to get this business to take it to another level. And I did. I remember my boss at the time said to me, you will never get a mortgage being self-employed. Stay with me. And that was almost like, I want to prove this guy wrong. And I did later, sadly, through my father's death, because I inherited our family home. So I didn't buy a house in a typical sense, but I was able to get a mortgage. So I'm quite proud that I was able to do that. And so for me, for the last 10 years, I've not been employed for a long, long time. And I'll be honest, a bit like you, and I don't think it's because I can't do a job and be employed, but there's just so many more benefits of being employed, self-employed, I believe.
Yeah, and actually the interesting thing I think there is that what does it take to do well in business, or to at least try? It comes down to problem solving. And actually I think people realize they have problem solving abilities, or that they don't realize they have problem solving abilities when actually they have them in great depths. And I think a really good translation of that is sports, where you mentioned about sports and your sports background. I've got a massive sports background, football, athletics. I used to run 100 meters, and everything that you do, I played in football teams, rugby teams, I did everything. And everything that is done when you're playing these sports, you're problem solving constantly. You're constantly thinking, okay, where can I find the hole? Where can I make the pass? Where can I get the extra yard? Where can I do these things? You are problem solving. And sports isn't the only example, but it's an example that we're both familiar with. I actually think that's the most important transferable skill that you have, because actually that then goes into product building, it goes into sales, it goes into all these things. Sales, for example, is how do you identify the customer's problem and show them how you can solve this problem? That's problem solving. Building a product. Okay, we've got an idea that we want to build this product. We found a hole in the market. We found a gap in the market, a problem that they have. How do we solve that by building this product? There's so many things there. I actually think that the ability to problem solve is in a lot of people, but it's how do you translate that into a business sense? And you've done that through identifying, the first business, the film stuff that you do, and the second business now, the translation stuff. These are problems that you're solving and you're identifying, but you've probably been solving problems that you weren't even aware of from such a young age. And I think everyone does that, but it's just how do you translate that and communicate that clearly?
Very interesting. Yeah, maybe I was solving problems without me realizing. But that's the way I see, in the filmmaking sense, what we do in telling stories. Ultimately, we're telling in Story Company, we're telling stories for businesses and clients that, we often say we're solving a problem for them through film or through video, because their problem is they don't know how to write their own story, or they don't know how to put their messaging out there, and we come in and help them with that. Admiral, case in point, we've done quite a lot of recruitment films for Admiral, but the first recruitment film we did for them was to fix a recruitment problem, because a lot of people looking at their website, not applying for jobs, high turnover staff through training and recruitment in operations. So they wanted to give people a real insight into what it's like working in recruitment. Now, the core of their business is their contact centres. That is the core of the insurance arm of Admiral. If you don't like working on the phones, you couldn't pick a worse job, because that's part of the business, is picking up the phone, giving good customer service. So if you're introverted and don't like talking to people, guess what? You've gone for the wrong job, right? So I think they were having this experience where they're employing people, but then the people going into Admiral didn't realise what they signed up for. So they wanted a film to really tell the story of what it's truly like working for Admiral. There's great benefits and all these things, but ultimately you need to be good with customers. You need to be able to hold a conversation. You need to be compliant, because if you say the wrong thing, that could come back on them. And being in a regulated industry is something they care deeply about. But for us, we're problem solvers through film, and in your case, you're solving lots of problems in the businesses that you've established.
Yeah, I think everything comes down to problem solving. I think ultimately every action is trying to make the world a more efficient, better operating, better place, whether you're in AI, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in sports, whether you're in entertainment, whether you're in filmmaking, whether you're in media, whatever it is. Everything you're doing is to try and improve something. And to improve something, there has to be an issue in the first place, or something can be done better. So you're identifying those problems, and whatever case it is. But I think, like I say, I think everyone does that to some extent, but it's how do you encourage that? How do you lean into those problem-solving abilities? And I think it just translates really well. And I've built my career so far off of doing that, and I fully intend to continue building my career off of doing that. And I know a lot of other people who are great. Like a lot of my friends are out on Y Combinator at the moment, which is the biggest startup accelerator in the world. They put $500,000 into you just by getting onto the program, and they've birthed companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, Coinbase, all these fantastic companies. Wow. But so many of them go in there, and before they've even got a product, before they've got any money, they just say, this is the problem we've identified. This is why we're credible people to solve it. And this is what we've done so far. And if they say, yeah, we get behind this, then you'll get, $500,000, you get plugged into this insane network of fantastic builders out in San Francisco. And all they've done is solve a problem. They spotted a problem and they think they've got a solution for it. And I'm sure things will iterate and change from there on until, the ultimate success point. But everything is problem solving. So if you are finding solutions, that's a good ability to have, and really dial in on that, I would say.
Great. That's great advice. I want to talk, we've talked a little bit about the mountaintops and the valleys. In your first official business, post school, you had a success in establishing a business. You were growing, seeking for investment. You managed to raise £250,000, a lot of money raised, but that business didn't pan out how you expected it. What was the biggest lesson from that? Because you surely learned something from that business opportunity, because that was an investment, really. You then rethought and turned down.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably got about 50 hours worth of lessons from that business. I could go on for ages, the things I learned from that. But ultimately we ended up not taking any of the investment on, because I was just very aware that we were going to burn that cash and not justify taking on £250,000 of other people's money. We would have not grown and it just wouldn't have worked. I knew that internally, so I couldn't face taking that money on. But I think in terms of core business lessons, the stuff I learned from doing that one, I often say that was my university. I didn't go to university. That was my university. I learned about validating the problem before trying to solve something. So what I didn't do was think, okay, I've got this problem and I'm trying to solve it. I was solving big corporate bookings for hospitality. I've got this problem when I'm booking events and stuff at Deloitte. What I didn't do was go to all the prospective customers and say, hey, have you got a solution for this problem already? How do you feel about this problem? What are you doing currently to solve it? Is it a big enough problem for you to pay for? I didn't ask any of these questions. I thought, oh, this is a good idea. This is a good solution. Let's go for it. So one thing I'll say is, if you're good at solving problems, great, but actually then you have to go and validate that. And I didn't do that at all. I did zero validation. I just went straight into it, built this thing, and then I took it to market, and then everyone was like, it's not really what we need. So I was like, oh, right, okay. Now what do I do? So it's like a rewind, go back to the beginning, and you have to iterate and reshape and build. And that could have saved so much time if I'd just done that from the outset. If I'd done that at the start and just identified these people that I needed to speak to, asked them about their problems, asked them about what they're using to solve it already, I would have had a much better journey in terms of building business. But I didn't do that, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's the lesson that I had to face. So that was a big one. Actually, my selling ability from the beginning of that business to the end has improved drastically. I would say selling is probably one of my core skills, and I would say I'm good at it. I think I've always been good at talking. I've always been good at having conversation and meeting new people, but I didn't quite understand the dynamic of sales. Now I look at sales as a very simple thing where you identify your customer profile. They might have 5 or 6 problems that they maybe want solved in different degrees, but they will have one burning desire. They'll have one problem that is an absolute bottleneck for them, and they'll do anything to have it solved. It is your job as the salesperson, the entrepreneur, to identify what is that one burning problem and show them with undeniable evidence you can solve it for them. That's a big learning that I've had, and I think I've then translated that into everything else I've done. And it's just problem solving, right? Well, identifying that big problem, show them how you can solve it for them. So those are probably 2 big lessons. And then when it comes into, I've always been interested in finance. I've always been interested in how does money work and how do economies work and stuff like that. But actually, as I was saying earlier, my interest in angel investing is the first degree, and then venture capital is the second degree. I'm an absolute venture capital nerd. I love venture capital. I love angel investing. I love all these things. So that really excites me. So I got a lot more education in regards to how the economics work of an early stage high growth business. And then, you just learn loads of life skills as well, right? Like speaking to people, managing people, organizing your time, keeping yourself accountable, being disciplined because you haven't got a boss to tell you when this has to be done by. You have to do it for yourself. So that really was a crash course in actual business for me and actually trying to do something from scratch.
Problem university.
Yeah, literally, it was exactly that.
And you mentioned earlier angel investing. You are an investor yourself?
Like small stuff, yeah. So I do really small stuff myself. Again, like I'm not putting in hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of investment tickets. I'm not a multi-millionaire. I can't do that yet. But there's loads of things like crowdfunding platforms that you can do that on. I mentioned earlier about looking at maybe setting up an SPV of my own. That means that I can actually get my own circle of people who are in the space to write investment tickets into either local startups or businesses that maybe don't have the access to big finance that you will in a London or in New York or so on. So
what's that called again? SPV?
SPV is a special purposes vehicle. So it basically enables a group of people to put however much money they choose into a pot, and then it sits on the capital allocation table as one entity rather than having 100 names. This person put in £50, this person put in £12, so on and so forth. You can just have it under Richard's SPV.
Like a crowdfund, but a different mechanism. So is that you would create a company and they would invest in a company and the company invests? Just thinking practically how that works.
So the crowdfunding stuff, that's exactly how it works. They just put an SPV together and then everyone puts the money into this vehicle, and then it will sit. The crowdfunding company sits on the capital table of the company as one entity. So you would generally set up a limited company for it as well, just for logistic purposes basically, but it's a separate entity. It's just an investment vehicle, and then someone leads. So I would be the lead investor. You do the due diligence on the companies that you might want to invest in, and then you also have a commitment to invest in each one that you put through. If the collective says we want to invest in this one, as a lead investor I also have to match the lowest investment. Even if I don't really believe in it, I have to invest, but I just like investing in startups really. So it's a
Very
good vehicle. But I think for me, what I want to do, saying earlier, a big thing for me is how do you democratize opportunity? That's what I care deeply about. I'm really passionate about democratizing opportunity. I know I haven't had a really hard life, but equally I haven't come from super connected, wealthy, influential family. So for me, it's a case of, okay, well, there's going to be loads of people who are like me that don't come from these crazy backgrounds. How do you give them the opportunity? How do you give someone in Llanelli the opportunity? How do you give someone in Scunthorpe the opportunity? How do you give someone in Aberdeen the opportunity? Well, actually, by democratizing that opportunity now, Revolut, for example, they did a crowdfund. If you put £2,000 into the Revolut crowdfund, you're now sitting on £1.4 million. So, that's the opportunity. But generally, the average investor doesn't get that opportunity. Whereas through an SPV, as long as you've got the right DD, and this is not financial advice whatsoever. I'm not qualified to give financial advice. But what you're doing is you're opening up those opportunities to people who, okay, they can't put 50 grand in, but they might be able to put £500 in, or they might be able to put however much in. It's a massive difference maker that most people don't get. So if I can do stuff, if other people can do stuff to democratize that opportunity, that's exactly what I care about.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you've got pensions and property and you've got all sorts of things you can put your money into. But I like the sound of that. I like the sound of, gosh, I've spent £500 on things that aren't of great value. So to put £500 into a company, now might land. It might flop, right? That's the risk, isn't it? But to put £500 or something of a smaller, when you think investment, you think of Dragon's Den typically. You think, I'm going to invest 1 million for 2% or whatever it is. They're big. That's huge money, isn't it? But for £500, as small as that, you could actually invest in a local company.
Yeah, and if you get 10 people to put 500 quid together, you've got £5,000 that you can then put into a company which helps them get off the ground. Or even bigger amount, you've got 100 people that can put £500 in, you've got 50k. It's big. And actually, there's something that you should look into with the new project is we have a scheme in the UK called the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. And we have the Enterprise Investment Scheme, which is like a bigger version of that. But essentially what the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme allows is for a company who has advanced approval on this scheme, if you raise investment, let's say I was to invest in you, I put £10,000 into your new business, you've got SEIS. I then get £5,000 of that immediately off my tax bill at the end of the year. So I get half of my investment written off against my tax bill at the end of the year. If the company goes through, I get a further amount written off the tax bill within, I think it's like a 3-year period. So you actually have a really good tax incentive to invest in these early stage companies. And if the company exits, I believe there's zero capital gains tax on the actual exit value. So it's a really, really good way to actually allocate your money. Again, not advice. I'm not giving anyone advice, but from a tax scheme, it's a really well incentivized way to invest in early stage startups and look at early stage startups as an asset class. And yeah, the potential upside is huge. You've got some really interesting stories there. But again, you should definitely look at doing that for your new business. Get that approval because it encourages more investors.
Yeah, brilliant. This isn't going to be the last of our conversations, Rich, for sure. This is going to keep going. But yeah, I want to give an opportunity to talk about what you're working on now, this new venture. Earlier I talked about you can invest in lots of different things. For self-employed people, you've spotted a bit of a problem in regards to pensions. So tell me more about what you're working on.
Yeah, I think, as I was saying earlier, we've seen over the last 12, 18 months a massive upturn or a massive change in how businesses are built through the tech side. You've got things like AI, you've got tools like Replit, Cursor, Lovable that enable you to spin up a minimum viable product of your tech idea in minutes. You can build that product quite easily, but actually the financial risk still exists because if you go all in on business, similar to what you were saying earlier about you just felt the urge to go in, a lot of people do, but sometimes it's really hard because you've got your salary, you've got your mortgage you've got to pay, you've got your pension that your company pays into from the workplace pension scheme that you've been automatically enrolled into. It's a really hard thing. Even though the product is spun up and you've built this thing, the financial risk is still huge. And actually, in terms of numbers, I was saying earlier, we've got roughly 4.3 million people in the UK that are self-employed, and we've got a pension gap per self-employed person of just shy of £250,000. And when you've got the struggles that we do with the state pension and the way things are going there, it's a difficult scenario to be in when actually, as a self-employed person, if you're not paying into your pension, you might be doing this stuff for the rest of your life, or you might collapse, or whatever it might be. The outcomes aren't great. In fact, about 80% of self-employed people altogether don't pay into pensions whatsoever. So we're just thinking, okay, well, how can we build a tool that empowers self-employed people to be financially, better as individuals? And that's done through this platform that we're building, and we're really trying to do that so they can actually focus on building the business. If you're constantly worrying about what's going to happen at retirement and how you're going to pay for this month and how you're going to do these things, and you're not going to end up building the business that you want to build. You're not going to perform to the best level that you possibly can. So what we're doing is we're building a platform called rocacard.com, and essentially the way it works is we've got a lot of cashback mechanisms in the back end. So if you're spending on insurance, if you're spending on products like the cameras and the microphones, if you're taking out debt facilities, if you're spending on software, all these things, we have cashback from them so that when you spend, you get, let's say, 20% cashback. That cashback then comes back into your Roca account. We have a pension scheme plugged in, so you don't have to worry about fighting through pension advisors and trying to get all that set up. We partner with a pension provider that is entirely regulated on the market, one of the most reputable providers in the world. And that money can get put straight into a pension for you. So you don't have to go around setting up and chasing everything. And you don't have to put all of it into a pension either. You can reallocate some of that back in to increase your runway for the month. And you can change however much you want to put in real time. So it can be 1%, it can be 100%, it can be 0%, it can be whatever you want. But essentially what we're trying to do is take business spend that already exists with entrepreneurs and turn that into that financial stability that you don't have as an entrepreneur. You don't have that financial stability. It's a huge gap for so many people. So that's what we want to do. And ideally, then it makes it easier again to start a business and build a company off the back of it.
That's a bloody good idea, because I spend thousands a year on insurance. So you're already providing a solution to something you're already spending money on, and then probably working competitively with an insurer to get, because commercially for you're getting commission, is it, on the back of that to make that introduction? Is that how it works for you?
Yeah, so a lot of people...
Or do you pay to have an account with Roca Card? Is that part of how you make the income?
There's two ways that we do it, right? So with my current business, Innovators Uncensored, I advertise a lot, right? So I've sent out a lot of advertisements in the content that we produce. And a lot of the time people come to me and say, can we do a commission deal? And I say, I can't do a commission deal because I need to project X, Y, and Z, and I need to have the capital to put on certain things that we do. So we've lost a lot of deals in the sense of people wanting to just do commission only. I can't do it. However, with this, I can now do commission. The way that it works is, we get X% commission from the transaction. We then share the commission with the buyer, with the person that's using their Roca account to buy insurance, buy software, whatever it might be. We'll take around 15% commission of the cash back. So again, you're not effectively paying anything in that sense. It's money that you're getting back, and we take a 15% commission of that, and it's free to use. There is a paid version that you can have, which is a premium version. You pay a small fee each month, like a normal subscription. We take less of a commission fee, and then the discount deals are bigger. So the cashback deals are bigger, so you get more money back again. But those are the ways that we work it. And again, it's just making it as friendly as possible for people who are self-employed to get the best deals, to set themselves up financially as an individual, to then build the best business that they possibly can.
Bloody genius. I think that's a great idea. Because it's a problem, as you said. 80% of self-employed people don't pay into a pension. So that's a huge market share. So the opportunity exists for sure. But yeah, really, really excited to see how this pans out. So I'm going to be paying close attention to Roca Card. Richard, if you could spend an hour sitting here interviewing your very own guest on your own podcast. I know you already have a podcast, and we haven't mentioned that, but we'll come to that as we close. If you could spend an hour listening to anyone's story, whose story would you love to hear?
100% it would be Michael Moritz. So Michael Moritz is a Welsh venture capitalist, early into Apple. He's Sequoia Capital, the most famous venture capital fund in history, almost. Them and Andreessen Horowitz benchmark that kind of tier. Welshman, born and raised over in Wales, over in the States now, but just been so pivotal in tech.
Have you met him before?
I wish. Wow. He's a multi-billionaire out in Silicon Valley. He's the cream of the crop, the elite of the elite. I don't see him doing anything in Wales. I can't say whether he does or not. I've never seen. I don't think he does, but he might do. Just not to my knowledge. But he's early in Apple, Sequoia Capital, Welshman. I'd love to have him back in Wales, do more in Wales. We've got a great scene of startups and founders here. It would be him, 100%. I have no doubt.
Wow, that sounds like a really interesting guest to have on your podcast, mate.
I'd love that.
That'd be great. And talking about podcasts, you did a pilot series with Innovators Uncensored. And I love the name. Remind me, what's the name?
So it's Sharks, Snakes, and Shareholders. So
Bloody love it. That's great.
It's an investor horror story show. So again, just trying to take really bad stories that have happened with founders and their investors and make it a bit more consumable. We have these horror stories in. We have guests in that are venture capitalists, they're angel investors, they're lawyers. And we talk about these stories. They rank them on our red flag scale from not very bad all the way up to the worst level of severity possible. And it just gives you a bit of an idea of what's good behavior, what's bad behavior, what to look out for, how to deal with these things. And it's not just someone talking through a term sheet, explaining each thing word by word. So yeah, we've done that. We've got a second series coming soon. We still do the newsletter every Friday sign up from our website, innovatorsuncensored.com, and Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, putting things out all the time as well. So yeah, just content everywhere.
Found the knowledge for startups. Well, you've already pitched it there, but yeah, if people want to know more, there's the Innovators Uncensored. You've got the website as well.
Yeah.
Is that how you engage with the newsletter?
Yeah, sign up to the newsletter on innovatorsuncensored.com. We also have a startups jobs board, so we have loads of startups share opportunities, great opportunities, exciting startups, and we have loads of people applying through that every single week. So great opportunities there, which is also on the website. You can just find that on the jobs tab, and then yeah, my LinkedIn. I'm severely on LinkedIn, so
You
Richard
are.
Lee.
You are. I see you all the time. But honestly, for you watching, listening, the resource, the newsletter is fantastic. I've seen so many cool tools on there. A lot of tech startups, AI. There's a lot of them Welsh as well. It's great to see that focus and you supporting Welsh businesses. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Keep writing that because that's awesome, and I can't wait to see series 2 of Sharks, Snakes and Shareholders.
Yeah,
I got it.
That's the one. Yeah,
I love the alliteration, the SSS. It sticks, doesn't it? Richard, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to hear your story from a young boy who was selling clothes to now helping, supporting startups all across, not just Wales, but beyond. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where this new business goes. And yeah, thank you for sharing. And thank you for coming to share your story on What's Your Story. Diolch i ti.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.